Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today I'm going to be reviewing the new Dark Side of the Moon Redux by Roger Waters. First off, just some fast album facts, or since this is a Pink Floyd related video, let's call it just the basic facts. Redux is the seventh studio album released by Roger Waters, released today on October 6, 2023, and is obviously a re-recording of the classic Dark Side of the Moon record for its 50th anniversary. Before I go any further, let me just stress that on this channel, I like to talk mainly about music that I enjoy, right? I talk about music that I want to talk about because I enjoy it. However, this is not going to be one of my more positive album reviews, unfortunately. But before I go on, I should mention, Roger Waters is a brilliant musician, has been a sonic genius for most of his career, and, I, of course, respect all of his contributions to the Pink Floyd catalog, and his solo work as well, I think, rivals a lot of that post-Waters era Pink Floyd. So for me, I really do enjoy Roger's work, but I'm not a fan of the idea of re-recording Dark Side of the Moon. I've been opposed to it ever since it was announced. So that said, let's get on to the record. In a press release, Roger wrote, and I quote, "Dave, Rick, Nick, and I were so young when we made the original, and we look at the world around us, clearly the message hasn't stuck. That's why I started to consider what the wisdom of an 80-year-old could bring to a reimagined version." End quote. Okay, so first of all, Dave, Rick, and Nick aren't here, right? Richard Wright has unfortunately passed away, so that's very unfortunate. Nothing you can do about that. But, when you want to talk about David Gilmour for a second, let's talk about David Gilmour. On this record, you're taking away all of the guitar solos and all of that, distinctive ambience that David Gilmour brought to the table on the original as well. So the fact that there isn't a single guitar solo on this entire record, on this stripped-down approach, tells me a lot. Tells me that Roger made the executive decision here to cut out as many of David Gilmour's fingerprints as he possibly could here from this record, again, by stripping it down so much, just like he did with Comfortably Numb 2022 on the Lockdown sessions, which, other than Comfortably Numb 2022, I enjoyed the Lockdown sessions, but essentially what you're left with here on this Dark Side of the Moon Redux is a bare-bones approach to re-recording an album in which the original showed great complexity and experimentation that blew people away when they first heard it, and I think has aged extremely well, celebrating 50 years this year. On to the actual material itself, I'm just not a fan of the way Roger reworked a lot of these songs, and maybe a lot of that feeling is coming from me just not feeling like they needed to be redone in the first place. But nonetheless, upon first listen, of course, there's no trace of Richard Wright's signature sound that helped to define this record, and gone is just about everything that David Gilmour contributed to the end product as well. It kicks off with Speak to Me / Breathe, super slowed down, featuring Waters reciting lyrics to Free For from Obscured by Clouds. Very underrated track from that record that sounds super eerie now, an 80-year-old Roger reciting the lyrics, but I just don't see the need to override Dark Side of the Moon with Obscured by Clouds, because both those records, in my opinion, brought something different to the table. Money is a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. I have no idea why he picked this as the lead single. It's far and away my least favorite song here on this Redux. He turned it into a dark, chugging, almost demo-like track here, just waiting for the input of the rest of the band, which obviously never comes. It has a very brooding atmosphere to it, very different from the original in that respect, as Roger continues to monologue throughout this track, completely off-kilter with the original are some of those new lyrics. And it just goes to show you can have a great melody, but if the instrumentation isn't there and the song is really lacking, that's just kind of the risk you run when you're stripping down a song like this. And of course, originally was much more of a fun track and earworm, very upbeat. Now totally different with newer lyrics as well. It just doesn't match the vibe of the original at all. And so there's a bit of a creative aspect here in the sense that Roger did do something different, but I just don't like what he did with it. Great Gig in the Sky gets absolutely butchered, by the way. That's a song that was one of the deepest and most thought-provoking tracks on all of Dark Side of the Moon, with no original lyrics needed, but now it's been reworked with Roger monologuing his way through the track, proving that sometimes subtlety is more, contrary to this new version, which sounds like it came straight out of a poetry slam. The mystique was lost, and I think the same can be said for Any Color You Like, where the work of Gilmour, Mason, and Wright has been overtaken here by more rambling from Roger Waters, which begs the question, if he has so much to say and wants to come across in such a deep manner, why not just record new material instead? Now, this is not to say that I don't think the Redux has any highlights. It does have some highs. For example, I think, the re-recordings of Us and Them, Brain Damage, and Eclipse all sound fine. They all kind of follow the similar lyrical outlines of the original, so I don't mind those versions. Obviously, they're not better than the original, but I don't mind them. They would be the highlights of the record for me. But I think the highs of this record definitely don't outweigh its lows, and that's, wherein lies its biggest problem. I'm just kind of failing to see why this was necessary in the first place, right? Because to me, what it looks like, keep in mind that Roger has a massive ego, is that Roger is trying to make the 50th anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon all about him, taking the spotlight away from the rest of the band, and, he has that attitude of, I wrote it so I can do what I want with it, which is understandable, considering he was the band's main thematic leader during this time period, and for a lot of their classic stuff. but, in doing so, he's minimizing the work that the rest of the band did to make Darkside so great in the first place. It's easy to just say, let Roger do his own project here and who cares, but the other issue I have with this is that this opens the door to possibly more Reduxes in the future, and I definitely don't want to hear an Animals Redux or Wish You Were Here Redux or anything like that. Plus, there's the possibility that Roger plays stuff from this Dark Side of the Moon Redux live in this stripped-down style now, just like he did with Comfortably Numb 2022 on the This Is Not a Drill tour, and personally, I have no interest in hearing that, and quite frankly, Roger's live shows these days, focus a lot on the spectacle, and I don't think that taking a stripped-down approach to the original music that filled those arenas in the first place would be the right way to go, or translate well to a live audience. Again, I reiterate what I said earlier in this video. Roger Waters has a great mind for music and has always been an amazing songwriter, but I have to raise the question again, why not just, make new material instead of going ahead and trying to improve upon a record that is virtually unimprovable? Dark Side of the Moon is a perfect album from top to bottom. It's a 10 out of 10 album. So, for me, I feel like Roger had an uphill battle from the beginning here, and, stripping it down the way that he did, I just don't think it works, and, compared to the original, I think it pales in comparison. So, the question of, is Dark Side of the Moon ruined? I think ruined is a very strong word to use. Since I am a fan of Roger's music, I want to like this album, but I feel like this Redux, more than anything, takes away, and I think that it restores nothing that the original doesn't already include. So I can say with confidence that if I'm ever in the mood to listen to Dark Side of the Moon, I'm going to play the original version 10 times out of 10. I put out a poll in the community tab asking you guys whether you think Roger Waters should have left Dark Side of the Moon alone or not, and of course 80% of you guys said yes, 20% said no, so I have to agree with the majority here, and that poll is still open, by the way, so please feel free to go ahead and vote your opinions, but yeah, I have to agree with the majority who voted 80%, yes, he should have left it alone. Not a very positive review here of Dark Side of the Moon. Again, moreover than anything, I like to talk about music that I enjoy, and I love the original Dark Side of the Moon, but can't say I'm a fan of the Redux here by Roger Waters. So if you enjoyed this video, or if you agree with me, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below. We are so close to 1.7 thousand subs, so please, every subscriber count is greatly appreciated. Also, be sure to turn on the bell for notifications so you never miss a new upload. Lots of exciting uploads coming in the month of October to look forward to, so make sure you don't miss out on that. And be sure to, again, let me know down in the comment section below your thoughts, because I want to hear from you. And until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.